In the shadow-laden streets of a quiet town, Michael felt an unsettling presence. The town was usually bustling with life, children playing in the parks, men and women heading to work, laughter ringing out from the local pub. But today, it had succumbed to an eerie silence. The silence was not a peaceful one. It was the kind of silence you would find in a graveyard, looming with a heavy sense of dread. Michael moved through the empty streets, his own footsteps resonating in the hushed atmosphere. He felt a chill run down his spine, as if icy fingers were brushing against his neck. His heart pounded against his chest like a relentless drummer, matching the rhythm of his quickening steps. The buildings around him, once comforting structures, now loomed over him like grotesque monsters ready to pounce. Each step home was echoed by whispers of unseen followers. The whispers weren't distinguishable. They were soft, almost inaudible, but persistent. They sounded like a choir of ghosts singing a haunting melody that only he could hear. The whispers everywhere, carried in the wind, bouncing off the walls and crawling up from the ground beneath his feet. They seemed to be coming from all directions, enveloping him in a fog of eeriness. His once familiar route now seemed a labyrinth of paranoia. Streets he had known like the back of his hand were now a confusing maze. The town's landmarks, such as the church at the corner, the bakery with the warm, inviting smell, and the park where kids usually played, all seemed alien to him. His mind was playing tricks on him, turning familiar objects into terrifying shapes, making every shadow a potential threat. He could feel the paranoia creeping into him, spreading through his veins like a potent venom. His breath hitched in his throat as he moved, growing louder with each step. He felt the unseen eyes on him, watching, waiting, praying. The fear was suffocating him, wrapping around him like a constrictor, making it harder to breathe. He saw his home in the distance, a beacon of safety in a sea of terror. As he neared, he hoped that his fear would dissipate, but instead, it only grew stronger. It was as if the dread he had felt on the streets had followed him home, nestling into the corners of his safe haven. Once he stepped into his home, the walls seemed to close in around him, the shadows stretching longer and darker. His heart galloped in his chest as he moved from room to room, each one devoid of any life, any warmth. The house creaked and groaned as if it too was afraid, its structure fear. The eerie whispers continued, the unseen followers seemingly having crossed the threshold with him. He went around to close the windows, hoping to shut out the whispers, but they seemed to seep through the walls, through the floor, through the ceiling. His every move was reflected in the mirrors, the images distorted and sinister. He felt a chill run down his spine, his heartbeat echoing in his ears. The silence of the house was broken intermittently by the sound of his own breathing, hurried and shallow. Each creaking floorboard, each whistling breeze, each rustling curtain seemed to be a sign of the unseen entities. His house, his invaded by an unsettling presence, making him a prisoner in his own home. He moved cautiously, every muscle in his body coiled like a spring, ready to jump at the slightest sound or movement. At home, the feeling of being watched intensified. Shadows dancing just beyond the light's reach. The darkness seemed to ebb and flow with his fear, the shadows growing larger, darker, more menacing. It was as if the darkness itself was alive, breathing, watching. He felt as if he was caught in a macabre dance with the shadows, the unseen forces toying with him, creating a sinister symphony of fear. Night after night, the tapping on the windows, the creaking of the floorboards grew bolder. Michael's sanctuary became a prison of fear. Then, one stormy night, the inevitable happened. The sound of shattering glass shattered the illusion of safety. Michael, heart pounding, confronted his unseen tormentor, only to find nothing. The break-in was a ruse, a psychological game played by the entity that haunted him. The real horror was not the break-in, but the realization that the entity wanted not his life, but his sanity. The climax reveals the entity as a vengeful spirit, bound to Michael by a dark past he'd long forgotten. In a chilling conclusion, Michael must face the consequences of actions taken in forgotten memories, leaving viewers questioning the boundaries between guilt, redemption, and the supernatural.